following episode most likely contains graphic language, details of violence, and murder, and may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 46 of Murder with My Mother, the true crime podcast where I talk murder with my mother.
Hello, everybody.
My mother, who gave birth to me in May.
I'm actually so fucking glad that May's almost over because May is the most expensive month for me.
Because not only are you a mother that gave birth in May, I am also a mother that gave birth in May. And my boyfriend's mother is also a mother that gave birth in May. And then there's also Mother's Day in May. There's a lot of shit.
It's been hectic. And it's always, so my son's birthday's in April on the 10th. And then it starts. Mm-hmm. May is like, what is there, 3 of you now? Yeah. And Alex is in April. And by the end of it, I'm fucking broke as hell. So I'm pretty happy that May is almost over.
Yes. Well, for all our listeners that have been listening for 3 years, you guys have been through a couple Mays with us, so you know how hectic May is for us. So,
and I look shabby by the end of May because I'm just like so tired. I have to see Danika's father only once a year, and it's always in May. And I'm not saying that I like that.
You might be a listener now. So.
Oh, good Lord.
So she loves it.
Love it. Yeah.
Thanks for
wish we could get back together.
Yeah, okay. Whoa. Okay, this is on the internet, Mom. You can't say stuff you don't mean. Just kidding. We also had a wedding this May. So my great uncle, who is my mom's uncle, bring out the banjo, who's actually younger.
2 years younger than me.
Than my mom. He got married to his longtime love of his life.
They're lovers.
They're lovers, yeah. Now they're husband and wife. So she's
there goes the sex.
Yeah. So maybe that's why everyone gets divorced in 5 seconds. Just kidding.
I made it a year and 4 months, so a little longer than 5 seconds, but not much.
Yeah. Well,
so the wedding was super fun.
Super fun. And we saw a lot of our family, which was super cool. And now a lot of our family doubles as listeners. So
hey, fam.
Hey, fam. Stefan, we love you.
He's like one of the most loyal listeners.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know.
I was like,
yeah.
If you guys could see me, I would just awkwardly beat my chest, like, you know. But yeah, so I've met a lot of listeners too, just kind of out and about, which has been really funny.
It's been very strange, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
If you're looking at me oddly and know who I am, you could just say hi.
Just be like, hey, Christy, or hey, Danica.
Yeah.
And if you don't remember our names, then just...
Hey, murder lady.
Hey, ladies that talk about murder and all that stuff. But yeah, so you guys know a lot of shit's been happening, obviously. In the true crime world, actually, is kind of where I want to focus our true crime events. The shit's still popping off in Vancouver, don't get me wrong, but there's some big stuff going on in the true crime community, first and foremost. A lot of people who are obviously true crime fans are familiar, we always talk about it, familiar with like the big ones.
The big ones. The ones that we've been following for, God, probably since you were born, pretty much.
I think that actually, that was the year after I was born, this trial. Well, so who I'm talking about is Eric and Lyle Menendez. In 1993, they were trying to think, what year was it that the crime happened? 89?
I don't know, but it was right around there because I remember with my feathered hair watching it on my multicolored sofa.
Yeah, if you never know the date, just look at Mom's hair and I can always be like, that was this year.
Although the 90s lasted
into the 2000s. Well,
they looked like the 80s still, but they're the 90s.
And then the 80s might have lasted all the way to the 2000s. So, but yeah.
It's flat now.
Yeah, it's okay. It's like, but anyway, Lyle and Eric Menendez, they had 2 trials, found guilty of murdering their parents. And
both of their parents.
Yes, and surprise, surprise, obviously our listeners, you guys all know that we never talk about trauma or what happens to you having an effect on a lot of these people. So in the trial, it was said, the defense was saying that these boys they were men at the time, but they were molested from like the age of, from young.
Yeah, like very young. And they were claiming that they were both molested by their father.
Yep, Jose Menendez.
And their mother knew about it the whole time, Kitty.
Yeah. She just
did nothing and just
turned her
and
head.
they were fully made to do things, I think, with him like
Yeah.
just out in the open. And so there was a lot of doubt when it came out because not a lot of people were talking about stuff like that back then.
Nope.
And it was super shocking. Like, I remember like, oh my God, the shit these kids are making up. And it was now has come out that he has also been accused recently of molesting a member of a famous boy band.
Yeah. So he
Menudo.
was Menudo. So there's actually a new documentary. I haven't seen it yet, but as soon as I heard about it, I was like, I need to get this login of one of these.
If anyone has Peacock, Nika needs
let
the
me
password.
I'll let you use my Crave. You could use my Prime. You could use whatever. Netflix isn't mine. It's Tommy's, so I'm still on there. But
that which is my ex-boyfriend of 3 years ago.
But whatever. Anyway, so they are these new reports are coming out, which now, because what had happened was the state of California versus Menendez basically was saying that these boys did all of this for financial gain, and they murdered their parents for selfish reasons. But the brothers always have stuck to their stories because they are still incarcerated, and they're well into their, I think, 50s now.
Yeah, I think they're older than me for sure. And I think also, like, yes, the family was extremely well off, and the boys.
The dad was a record exec, which put the boy band and the record exec together. And it's not actually the only person that they are accusing. Hold on, his name, the member of Menudo, is actually named Roy Rosello. So he has claimed that Jose Menendez, then an executive at RCA Records, which signed Menudo to a multi-million-dollar contract, raped him as well in the family's New Jersey home. So obviously, that is going to make people give it a second look, I think, or a third look now, because the first time the jury was deadlocked. So that trial...
Yeah, and I mean, basically when they were convicted, it was on the premise that they like premeditated this murder for no fucking reason, and they just did it because they wanted the money. And I mean, they
didn't get any money.
No, and their claims have now been even more substantiated. And fuck, like
I'm just, but you guys know I don't shy away from talking about that kind of stuff. Obviously, it's really sad to put it this way, but every person we know most likely has been sexually assaulted in some way, shape, or form. And if you haven't, you're that's
gonna be. No,
well, no,
I'm just joking.
Oh my God,
I'm just joking. I know it's inappropriate. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's your trauma response. You like to make everything into a joke.
That is true.
But it's okay. Backtrack here. Really, it's really sad because that is a trauma that it does cause people to have the brain ways, the pathways in your brain physically change when you are sexually assaulted, especially before the age of 12. So,
and I also think like your pathways change. When you're going through something that traumatic, that is pretty much the only way you can see. Like, imagine your mom knows the whole time that this is happening to you. Other people probably knew also, and so there was
cousins that had conversations with the parents about it. Like, it was a well-known, and that's the thing, and we've discussed this before many times, is most of the time in the early, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, probably, now is the only time it has been people are actually getting it out on the table. There's, that shame that's associated to that is, obviously, someone's going to have shame just because that is something that is so misunderstood and that you don't know what's going on, especially when you're a child and you're targeted in an act like that. You can't make sense of it. So shame just comes with that. But now learning that there's no shame associated with it because you didn't do anything.
No, you're not the one. I mean, even the way that rape is now understood in any form is so different. Like, before, it was always said, like, oh, you didn't say no.
Or you wore that really short skirt. Or, well, you were just drunk. But it's like, if you have sex with someone when they're drunk and incoherent, they cannot say yes to you.
Even if you have sex with someone that doesn't explicitly say to you, like, I want to have sex with you right now, and, like, starts going at it with you, I mean, it's going to be, there's a chance. I mean, if you didn't give your explicit consent, it's not consent.
No, exactly. But we are going to, I could talk about the Menendez brothers. We should probably one day do.
Let's do it.
An episode on the Menendez brothers. We'll do it. We'll do it for you guys. But just to change gears, all the cases, speaking of the cases that we have done, it's no secret in true crime, majority, let's say like at least 70%. I'm making up these statistics, but at least 70% of true crime victims of murder, victims of crime are women, right? That's majority of our cases. Most of the time it's the husband murdering their significant other, or it's a jealous stalking lover that's murdering
someone that can't get what they want.
Yes,
they're
obsessive, right?
Yeah.
Usually with a woman. Or not. I mean, we've obviously done other cases, but even, we did a case of a woman murdering a pregnant woman, stealing her baby. We did a case we've done a lot of cases of, mostly it's to do with women. So, and most of the time, like when I was reading out the first little bit of this case to my boyfriend, it was right away, and to my best friend, it was like, it's the husband, because you always assume it's the husband. Based on a couple of the last cases we've done, we know that probably
some of the husbands are still walking around.
That, and it most likely was the husband that perpetrated this murder. But today we have a different case. It's a suspect that we even had, remember with Jesse Sadu? Remember? It was the uncle, It's like, even that was shocking. But today's case for me was like, holy shit, you never hear of that. And I'm glad that it's not as common because, it's crazy.
And also, I think that the relationship that we're going to discuss is one that a lot of people have strife in.
Mm-hmm.
So
and that's why it's like you can really put yourself in the position of a lot of these stories that we're going to cover on this case. So, with that, we will jump right into the case. So, okay. August 5th, 1992 was just another day in the quiet Vancouver suburb city of Coquitlam,
British Columbia.
British Columbia. So just about, you guys I like to do the distance.
Yeah,
it's about a
it's
15-minute
interesting.
drive with no traffic from where we are.
Yeah.
Which makes this stuff even more, you feel like, holy shit. Obviously, this was the year I was born, so I was probably sitting right beside you watching the news, even at that time. Because
What month was it?
August.
August. So, you're probably...
Right there. 26-year-old, recently divorced mother of one, Alexandra Pesic, was leaving her dental assistant job after her shift was over around 6 p.m. Her friend and her were leaving together. They crossed the road, and as she was getting into her parked white Firebird, a red IROC Camaro sped down the street in her direction. With many people around on this still light-out summer evening, the red car approached Alex's vehicle and let out 6 shots into the driver's side of Alexandra's car. They sped off and continued to let out shots in the car's direction as they fled.
And one lady just bent down to tie her shoes.
The one she was walking
Yeah,
with.
it's like saved her life.
Yeah.
Because the bullets went all over.
So stunned witnesses ran to help. Alexandra's windows were shot out, and she was bleeding from her head and neck. They checked for a pulse, and there was a faint sign of life. They held towels on her wounds, and she was still alive when the ambulance arrived. Sadly, Alexandra died on the way to the hospital just 3 weeks before her birthday.
And I've watched some footage on the case, and it's such a trip back in time.
It is.
Like,
because it looks,
even
first of all, Coquitlam looks almost exactly the same, I was going to say.
Well, that building, it happened on North Road.
Yeah,
and
the
those
Cottonwood
buildings.
Medical Center.
Yeah.
But it literally looks the same. It's 2023.
But so. even those cars, like the cars that were involved, it's like such a flashback into those days, like an IROC and a Firebird, and they interviewed the guy that was the first one to help the police get her out of the car, and he was just like, talking to the news. And his mullet was flapping away.
Which are back in now.
Yeah.
In this clearly targeted act of violence that was so obviously personal, who would want to hurt Alex? Who would target a single mother and dental assistant in such a high-profile drive-by shooting in broad daylight? As shocking as this was, those closest to Alex knew she was in danger. Alex had been complaining of stalking for the past 3 years, had gone to police, and had even hired a private investigator. Alex knew she was going to die.
And she kept telling everybody.
Yeah. So
and she had no
fucked
idea.
up.
No idea.
No, and the thing is, you see these, and we've talked about them too many times, but you see these brazen daylight, I don't give a fuck if anybody sees me shootings, or I'm going to do this in places like at a McDonald's, at
Gas
gas stations, all these places.
But generally, they're not a 26-year-old dental assistant
No.
with no ties to criminal activity. Generally, these days, it's, someone that has gang affiliation or
someone that
someone that's doing something that
or
maybe they
it's
shouldn't be.
completely, the wrong person. We've
Yeah.
seen that too,
Yeah.
So that was the shocking part of this, because like, who the fuck would risk that for like a dental assistant? Not saying that like maybe there's some dental assistants that are
Especially
live a double life. I don't know, but
I also feel like in the 90s, like it was honestly a more innocent time.
yeah, like because
Like
who would
people didn't even think of stuff like that. It wasn't like it is now.
clearly they did.
Well, they
did sometimes
Yeah,
think of
but-
stuff like that, but.
So shocking.
It is very shocking. So Alexandra Amber Ignatovich was born in Yugoslavia and immigrated to Canada with her mother at a young age. She was said to be kind, outgoing, confident, friendly, and welcoming by everyone that knew her. So, sidebar, I grew up with a lot of people from Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia. So it used to be called, and at this time it was still called Yugoslavia.
So it was like one nation, and then it
was.
separated.
And then it separated. So because I also am friends with a lot of those people, the C at the end of all their last names is actually pronounced ch. So I know, because everyone's like, oh, Pesic, but it's not. It's Pesic, right? So I don't know. I'm just gonna. There's a lot of these kinds of names in this story. So, Mom, there you go. There's your help. There you go. So, yeah. So on February 2003 is when the adoption and promulgation of the Constitutional Charter of Serbia and Montenegro by the Assembly of Federal Republic was, so the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia name was changed to Serbia and Montenegro. So just a little history lesson for you guys there. Quick.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
As Alex got older, it was said that she was very driven and capable and was always pleasant to be around. She's also very beautiful, and she was even the runner-up in the 1984 Miss Burnaby pageant at 17 years old. The next year, Alex also competed in the Miss Canada pageant. There's footage of that. She's totally bubbly, beautiful,
Yeah, and she played the
talented,
piano. Yeah,
played the
super
piano beautifully. And she was very close to her mother.
It's a hard one. I'm going to let you know. I'm just kidding. I think it's Zdenka.
Zdenka Ignatovic.
There you go.
It was just the two of them. And on the days they had some extra time, her mother and Alex liked to go to open houses and like dream of their dream home that they would someday live in.
Me and Mom used to chase ambulances. Which I was a kid, so it's probably super dangerous, because one time we pulled up and all the cops had their guns drawn.
And I was like,
their
oh, never mind, we have to turn around.
Like, oh, sorry, kids, let's go get McDonald's after swimming. So we just chase that fucking. Anyway.
I want to say in my own defense, I was 18.
Well, at this time you were a little bit older, but yeah, it's okay, and that's fine. But no, some parents do stuff with their kids.
Go to open houses.
Some whatever. That's fine.
We also went to the Picton farm.
Yeah, multiple times. We actually would always go to true crime event locations, which for all of you guys is probably super shocking.
At least no one can take you away from me now.
True. So at that one of those open houses in 1988, Alex and her mother, and her mother met a woman named Yelka and her husband, Sava, who also went by Sam. Their last name was Pesic, and at an open house, they were at an open house, we already said that, but they overheard them speaking Serbian, at the time Yugoslavian. So obviously if you hear somebody with your mother tongue in a place where that is not everyone's mother tongue, you kind of feel a little more connected to them.
Yeah, you feel drawn.
Yeah. So because of that, the Pesic, they seemed really nice, and they were really happy to meet Alex and Zdenka as well. The Pesic's owned Sam & Sons car garage near Main Street and encouraged the ladies to stop by if they ever had any car issues, or as new friends just to pop in for a visit. So Alex took them up on this offer pretty soon after they met, because her taillight went out, and so she needed to get her taillight fixed.
So while she was there, Alex met the Pesic's son, Joe. He was their son, and after their first date, it didn't take long for them to fall in love. After just 1 month of whining and dining, motorcycle rides, and a romantic whirlwind, the couple got married in June of 1998 at Fantasy Gardens.
1988.
Or 1988, sorry. Fantasy Gardens, which that was also like a pretty...
For me, I had to Google Fantasy Gardens because I think it was predated me.
Yeah,
obviously.
it did, because I remember being in
it still doesn't
early
exist
high
now.
school. I remember being in early high school, and it was the Vanderzams that owned it. And then...
Are they who owns, oh no, the Gardens one now? Van Zant Gardens?
No.
Oh,
Van Dusen, that's a
oh,
different
Van
one.
Dusen. Vans,
But
a lot of vans.
the Bill Vanderzam ended up being the premier of the province, and he owned Fantasy Gardens, and it was like a total 80s icon place.
It's
As you could see in the wedding.
Yeah, it was
well, maybe we'll post a wedding photo of Alex and Joe, and you can just see, like, it's got Fantasy Gardens written all over it, like with the puffy sleeves and the head, the headpiece on the.
Mm-hmm. It was very 80s.
It's like everybody's 80s wedding, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I need to go back in time and go to an 80s wedding. Maybe I'll have No, I'm not having a wedding, but maybe
If I
you
ever
can
get married again,
Have an 80s theme.
I will commit to that right now.
Yeah. You guys, you hear that? Mom's gonna get married one day. If we have any takers, because she's still not. There's but 80s theme sounds fun. So maybe I'll try even harder now to get you a match.
Please don't.
Just kidding. Okay. But
Maybe
you know
I
what?
could marry someone that was born in the 80s as like part of the theme.
No, that's not allowed. Well, actually, that would be older than me, so you're safe. That's Mom's only rule. She's not allowed to date or even hug anyone younger than me. Like a sex hug, like none of that. So the thing is, they got married a month after they met each other, but apparently right off the bat, which I have had this experience before, not going to say with which one. I will just say it's not the one I currently have. Yelka right away apparently was like, oh, you should do this for your wedding, you should do this for your wedding, and was really controlling of her son.
Yeah.
So they have two sons, Joe and his brother, which I didn't even look up his name, but Joe and his brother.
And apparently Joe's personality was like very, very just
boring,
like quiet and boring.
Yeah.
And like that's why the Pesiches were so excited and like pushed the wedding, because she was such a catch. Like she was beautiful and she was outgoing, and their son was like fucking boring and like shitty.
Yeah. But they soon quickly realized that, or she quickly realized that, because she was trying to kind of get out of it, I think, in between the 1 month of meeting, like the 1 month they met and a month later they got married. So I think there was a lot of neon flags for her, because the mom was very overbearing, very controlling, very like just over the top.
Well, and like every day she would get home and the mom, Yelka, would be at their house making dinner. Yeah. And like you
That's
think
nice
that
once in a
it
while.
sounds nice, yeah, once in a while, but imagine every day there's Yelka making fucking dinner again. Like, fuck off, Yelka.
Fuck off, Yelka.
That's what you want to say, probably.
Exactly. She probably did want to say that. So, exactly. So, basically, she was a catch. Joe was whatever. But now she's starting to realize that,
what have I done?
What have I done?
And then, bada bing, bada boom, she was pregnant.
Exactly. So, but after the baby was born, their son's name was Brandon. And after he was born in 1989, they didn't last very long, because another thing that Yelka did to cross the line, and once you have a child, and anyone who has a child can relate to this, whether it be hormones, whether your mother-in-law just be a cunt, I don't know, you feel extra like mother bear, like protective, like even if someone critiques something that you do, it's like,
I'm gonna fuck I'm gonna punch.
Exactly. So,
but another thing also is that I think your child, no matter how in love, and I'm sorry if people are pregnant right now and they don't know this, and sorry to the husbands, but
Sorry,
when you
here's
have
your
your
heads
first
up.
baby, it truly is your very first true love because you love that baby with everything in your being
Yeah.
more than you've ever loved anything. And yeah, if anyone fucks with your baby, like
Even if they don't fuck with your baby, but they like just
say that your baby's too hot wearing those socks, you want to smash their head in, really.
exactly,
You know?
like literally had the exact same scenario, which I'm sure you did too, dealing with like different cultures too, which they are not the different cultures, but I know for myself, like, I mean, the same culture now, but one time I
Watch
had
where
a-
you're stepping.
yeah. Anyway, so we're just gonna.
Never mind. We won't go there.
So Yelka crossed the line again when this was the final straw. So I think every time she did, Alex would be like to him, "You need to tell your mom." Basically, I think to get out of here, to kick the get
Kick
outta
rocks.
here. Yeah.
Kick rocks, Yelka.
This is for the listener who said I swear too much, but
oh,
fuck you. No, I'm just kidding. No, basically she's like, you need to tell your mom to like stop it.
Like, stand up to your
Stand up
mom,
for
you
me.
fucking pussy.
Exactly. So he didn't. And then this last time, Yelka was babysitting Brandon, and he was really little. And he must have been teething or he was sick or something. And Yelka's like, let me give him this tea. And probably what was in it was like one time my grandma was like, oh, just dip his soother in this
Whiskey.
alcohol. And I was like, huh? Like, that's
Yeah.
probably illegal. But, you know, sometimes people bring things from old school beliefs and they try to do it here. And
I mean, even some of our beliefs that we had, like back in the day when you were born, gripe water actually had alcohol in it.
yeah.
And I gave it to you all the time. You were probably an
Coca-Cola
alcoholic.
had cocaine in
Yeah.
it. So, I mean, you know.
Too bad it doesn't anymore. That's all I
Yeah.
can say.
So, anyway, Yelka was babysitting Brandon alone. And she was just pretty much like, fuck you. I'm not listening to you. And she gave the baby this
Whatever.
some
she gave
kind
them.
of tea. Well, Alex got home and tried to wake the baby up, and he would not wake up after anything.
She had to take him to the hospital.
Yep. And Yelka finally admitted, I gave him the tea. So
The codeine tea or whatever.
yeah, basically, who knows what it was? It was probably like alcohol. It probably was. Like, I mean, I don't know what it was, but he wouldn't wake up. So basically they got a divorce, and Alex left right away, and they were going through a bitter divorce. It was just a lot of Joe was trying to get full custody, and
the parents actually also were involved in the custody dispute.
and they were
and it
trying to
was-
sue Alex for money because
Yeah.
they gave them a down payment for
Yeah,
their home,
For
and
$70,000. That's what Sam said. And then they were actually told that they were not allowed to have visitation
yeah,
with Brandon, which
Which
I
is kind of a
know
red-
back in those days it did kind of go more with the mother a lot easier, but to
why
take
no
complete
visitation?
rights away from grandparents is a pretty big deal. So a lot of stuff must have come out.
Yeah,
Because Joe still had visitation with Brandon at that time
yeah.
because he would go and get him from daycare and take him places, but
Yeah.
I don't think it was like a full-on shared custody arrangement at all.
No, but that's kind of when Alex already thought that she didn't like Yelka. Then Yelka's even truer colors started to show. So almost 3 years before Alex's murder, Alex received a book at her front doorstep. Someone mailed it to her. And the book was called The Deaths of Cindy James. And it was a true crime story written about a woman who was stalked and brutalized for years in the Vancouver area.
And passages were highlighted in
Yeah.
the book that she received in the mail.
Yeah.
Passages saying that her house was burned down and a bunch of other various things.
Yeah, so it was in the 80s, and it was actually over the course of 8 years. Cindy James was followed, stalked. She was found hogtied. She had nylons around her neck, her feet. One time she was stabbed in the hand with a note saying, like, you're going to die. And another time she was, like, found unconscious. And then someone even lit her house on fire. So she was basically going to the police and saying over and over and over. And the police thought that she was doing all of this stuff herself.
Well, and I don't know, but when you're hogtied and you have a note pinned through your hand,
Stabbed.
yeah,
Like,
stabbed through your
fully
hand.
through her hand. And so basically the book
until finally Cindy James
was
murdered.
But that's the thing. And I know some people might have seen this on Unsolved Mysteries because she was on Unsolved Mysteries. It's very mysterious because people, to this day, the Vancouver Police Department still says that
She did it herself.
killed herself.
Yeah.
She was found in the back of an abandoned home.
After she'd been dead for 3 weeks.
Yeah. And she was found right before her 45th birthday, dead. So anyway, passages from this book were highlighted and sent to Alex's house in the mail by an unknown sender. And the passages were like highlighted saying like,
And it was the stuff that later happened to her.
yeah, so the terrifying words were now being used to terrify Alex. Whoever sent her this book hated Alex and wanted her scared, but even more it seemed that they wanted her dead. So after reading some of the book, because obviously you're going to be, like, if someone sends something to my house, I'm probably going to read it, and then you're going to get even more freaked out when someone has went through this book and highlighted it.
Well, and then the police, again, she's bringing it all to the police.
Yeah, and so Cindy James had hired a private investigator, and Alex, after reading some of the book, she decided to hire the same investigator that Cindy James had hired, and his name was Ozzy Caban.
And he has stores, like spy stores, all
Love
over
those
Vancouver
stores.
still.
I love those
The
stores.
Ozzy Caban still exists. He's
Remember
still.
when I was fucking Spy Kids?
Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah.
Harriet the Spy.
I was Harriet the Spy Kids. Remember when Janelle fucking stole my VHS?
Yeah.
I will never forget. Anyway, just kidding, Janelle. I love you. You probably don't listen, but that's fine. So friends said that they were afraid to speak out after when she was murdered, and police did not take Alex's complaint serious enough. She was starting to get so scared that she was wearing disguises, like wigs. Like, imagine you had to put a wig on.
And no one
People
will
wear wigs
believe
now
you?
for like, I'm going to wear a wig, like switch it up. But
Yeah.
like having to actually wear a wig, have a disguise on, try to, like, you don't even know who's following you.
Well, and people were following her.
One time she got out of the car at her mom's house. Someone was following her driving, and she obviously, because people sometimes are like, someone's following me. They're not. They're probably not following me. But she stopped at her mom's, and a man in a mask ran after her. Like, she just
Till
made
she
it
just
to the door.
got to the door and closed it.
Yeah. And so it said someone, like I said, even lit her yard on fire.
Yeah, her front
So
yard.
she was wearing disguises and in hopes she wouldn't be recognized. And someone tried to run her off the road multiple times. And despite all her pleas to police, Alex felt no one was listening. No one was taking her seriously. And she felt she was going to be killed. So when questioned, a spokesperson from the Burnaby RCMP said they did what they thought was appropriate, and many of Alex's fears could not be substantiated at the time. In retrospect, those fears were probably true. Okay, well, that's comforting.
And after that, there were like
Rallies,
vigils,
yeah.
rallies held in Vancouver, just saying like
The police in
the
action.
police are not doing
Yeah.
the job that they should be doing with stalking,
Protecting
threatening,
people.
protecting, and
Having your home lit on fire is not enough for the police to do something about it. Being followed and stalked and ran off the road is not enough for somebody to at least, get a car to follow you. Or if you have to hire your own help for that, what are the police for? The system failed her 100%.
yeah.
So for hours before her murder, that same day she was murdered, two suspicious-looking men were sitting in the red IROC. They drove back and forth over and over down Cottonwood towards North Road.
They had mullets and big noses.
But that's like probably doesn't even narrow it down back then. And like probably every other person drove a Camaro. So
Yeah.
the shooter was described as a man in his early 20s with high cheekbones, greasy hair, wearing sunglasses, and the driver had shaggy hair and a chubby face. And an hour after the shooting, that same car was found. And no surprise, it was stolen.
And had stolen
The license plate was stolen. But they did find some hairs in the IROC, and they collected them. Fingerprints in the car came back to 21-year-old Lawrence DeLorme. And in the car, they also found a note that had a license plate written on it with a description of a white car with a red roof.
And also that same description and license plate had been noted by both Alex and Ozzy Caban's.
Yeah,
people.
the day of Alex's death, a member of the private investigators team had been patrolling near Alex's work, and actually Alex's son's daycare was right by her work. So the car was actually parked outside of her son's daycare.
Yeah.
So that's where the member of the private investigators team was watching it, and it was overcast. So a guy with sunglasses was sitting in, two guys with sunglasses were sitting in that car. And so it kind of screamed suspicious. So he paid extra attention and he wrote the license plate down as well. The white car with the red top seen following Alex and stalking her son's daycare matched the license plate that comes back to 28-year-old Milad Nenadic. The next day, police started surveillance on him. On August 10th, the same day as Alex's funeral, Milad is tailed by undercover agents. He's followed to the home of Yelka and Sam Pesic. Was this a coincidence, or was it all starting to make sense?
Well, also, what happened when he got into the car?
He laid down.
He got into Yelka's car and laid in the back seat.
That's so suspicious.
So I guess these guys aren't really good at telling that people are following them, or the police were
No.
doing a really good job.
Yeah, because you would think, obviously, I mean, if you had something to do with a murder, you would probably be, like, on high alert. So Yelka drove to Metrotown, which is a popular mall in Burnaby, and they walked in trying to look like they came separate. Walked in and then walked back out separate, but he got back into the car and
laid down again.
So obviously the police are all watching this. So they watched her drop him off back at his vehicle and they continued to follow him. As he drove into Surrey, the police decided to pull him over as he got out. His shorts were pretty short because it was the 80s.
It was the 90s, but he was still
it
wearing
was
his
the 90s,
80s
but it was
shorts.
still the 90s, or the 80s, just like your hair was also still living in the 80s. He got out, and there was like a huge big bulge in his
Ooh.
shorts, but it wasn't like a nice, good kind of bulge. Well, it was still, but it wasn't that kind. And then all of a sudden, $30,000 fell onto the floor right in front of the police when they pulled him over.
Fuck. Busted.
That same day, Alexandra's funeral was being held. The same time she was being buried, Milad Nenadic was arrested for arranging her murder, but the shooter is yet to be apprehended. So Alex was laid to rest at the Forest Lawn Cemetery in Burnaby. Now, for me, I've never want to be buried. I've never wanted that. I want to be cremated. But I've always thought that cemetery is so beautiful.
It's almost like Hollywood style.
It is, because my dad used to live in Burnaby, and I remember you drive down Royal Oak and you can like see it, and it's just beautiful. So rest in peace. That's where she's buried. And yeah, the same day.
Yeah, the same day, which was so great. Like, it was so really prophetic that it happened the same day.
Yeah.
And also, we didn't mention that Joe, that same day, went to pick up his son at the daycare. So everyone was brought in for questioning after that on August the 25th. They brought in Yelka, Sam, and Joe. And apparently in the past, Yelka had been caught a bunch of times shoplifting random shit. So like little things too, like chicken livers and like things that she could have afforded.
Well,
clearly.
Kleptomania is actually, it's a mental health disorder that involves repeatedly being unable to resist urges to steal items that you generally don't need. So probably like chicken livers. And often the person stealing, I mean, it's a mental health.
It is.
It's a mental illness.
So right there is like a big, so she happened to have a lawyer
already.
Just because she had to be.
Which obviously in this kind of case and shoplifting chicken livers, I mean, your defense attorney probably should be a different person, but they didn't know anybody else, so they just went with the same guy that got her off the chicken livers, I guess. So
yeah, so and the dad got a lot of workers' compensation claims and claimed a lot of ICBC claims.
He was fraudulent when they
He was super fraudulent also, so that kind of speaks to his character 100%.
Yeah. And Joe, when he was questioned, he remained really calm because he had an alibi.
Yeah.
He even still had his receipt from his swimming, which who keeps that?
He took the kid to go swimming, his son to go swimming, and kept the receipt, which was strange because you don't usually keep a receipt from the swimming pool.
I mean, I hoard all my receipts in my bag accidentally, so maybe you do, but I don't know. I think some people obviously really think it was him, and you guys know, what do we talk about more than anything? Husbands murdering their wives. And at this time, they were going through a pretty bitter, like, custody battle, and he was ordered to pay a bunch of money and all this stuff. So, I mean, there could be motive there, but he was really quickly cleared. Everyone kind of wanted it to be him because obviously who else would be involved?
Through the whole thing, I think his one fault in life in general is being such a complacent person, because they do speak to the fact that Yelka was making Alex's life hell before the divorce, after the divorce. And her husband, yeah, he was like the boss of the family, and he wasn't being great either, but it's never said that like Joe was being outwardly horrible, and he was probably just being cold, like he probably was the whole time.
Exactly.
But even
just
when
didn't do anything. That was always
and
the issue.
that's the thing. Like he should have stepped up.
Yeah. And so really the way it was Yelka was like a very caretaking. She did that, and she was meddling in all parts of her son's lives.
Stealing chicken livers.
Yeah. But her husband was like the boss, like the man of the house. And the police were like, there's no fucking way that if we're going to pay someone $30, your husband.
$30,000.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Even more. He probably would have noticed $300 even in 5 seconds. So $30,000 he would have noticed. But the other attorneys said that she had her own inheritance from Yugoslavia. So
which, whatever.
Yeah.
I think he probably still knew, but they could never find anything to connect him.
Yeah. And so Yelka was basically completely denying that she had anything to do with it. Why would I? Oh my gosh, I would never.
That's my grandson's mother.
Exactly.
I would never do that.
Yeah. So Yelka, Lawrence, and Malad were all charged with first-degree murder. The same day they were charged, police searched the home where Nenadic lived with his parents, and they recovered a semi-automatic handgun and a case of bullets that was a ballistic match to the murder weapon used. There were even 6 bullets missing out of the box. Well, surprise,
Ding, ding.
Surprise. When asked, Malad denied being the shooter, but said he picked up 2 men who he arranged to do the murder. He was more of a middleman, but claimed to have absolutely no idea who the 2 men were. Luckily, a man who walked by the Red Eye Rock the day of the murder recognized one of the men as Dave Volk and called in the tip line. But Dave Volk wasn't a name that anybody knew, so they were like, oh, we don't have anybody by that name. That's not even somebody's name. But luckily, we know that these criminals usually can't keep their mouth closed, and a woman shortly after called and said her boyfriend, Dave Segoviano, had admitted to her that he killed Alex. And coincidentally, Dave Segoviano's mother's maiden name was Volk. The girlfriend agreed to have her home bugged with a listening device, and Dave must have been
This part's
suspicious because when she would bring it back up, because he talked about it once and then
he told her,
agreed.
I'm the one that shot that
Yeah.
that girl.
Yeah. So when she would bring it back up now, she knows that the house is being bugged, but clearly he has some kind of idea. But she would ask him stuff, and he would write his answers down on paper, and then he would flush it down the toilet.
That's so fucked up.
So
you could hear the toilet flushing in the video. Like every time she'd ask him
The
a
police
question,
were like-
there'd be like a pause, and then a toilet would flush.
yeah. So obviously the police got a warrant because they were like, well, first of all, I'd go into the toilet and find those fucking notes because, like, what the fuck, dumbass?
You should have swallowed them instead.
He shouldn't have even written them. He should have learned sign language or something. I don't, really, if you want to be that, ugh. Anyway, the tenant of the house actually said, he's like, I remember that day. That day was welfare day. You guys know, that's what I picture that kind of talk like. So he said, I remember that day like it was yesterday. Dave came home and he had a whole different haircut, and then he threw his hairs into the garbage, and actually,
I still
they're
have
still
it. Oh,
there. So no one took their garbage out ever, clearly. But
Not on welfare day. You got other shit to do.
no. So police took those hairs and they compared them to the ones found in the Red Eye Rock, and they were very similar because at this time, DNA was still in its infancy, and all they could do was look at one hair and the other and say, yeah, that's
the
it.
same hair.
That's the same one. Obviously, now we have way different technology. Just a heads up to anyone I'm related to, I just did 23andMe, so if you're a murderer, you're going down pretty soon. So I already gave my dad a heads up. He didn't seem worried, so
Yeah,
there goes
kinda
that.
cool.
So the trial started, and Yelka remained really calm and quiet and cold. She was said to be just pretty cold. Sam came every day, and nobody sat anywhere near him, and so did Alex's mother, obviously.
Yeah, Alex's mother, they were so close.
Yeah.
That was so devastating for her.
Well, we've talked about it. When you have just one parent, you're usually pretty close with that parent. Usually, obviously there's other circumstances where it doesn't, but you and I, we've talked about it, it's like a trauma bond. It's a great and healthy. But when you only have one parent, you're my mom and my dad, right?
Yeah.
So in trial, Helen Gatona, who was a close friend of Yelka, dropped a bombshell. She had been with Yelka when Yelka mailed the Cindy James book to Alex's home.
Oh.
She had even been out for a walk. Well, what she assumed was a dog walk. Imagine if someone invited you on a dog walk and then you look over as they walk past their daughter-in-law's house and they're lighting it on fire.
Oh my god.
So she was like, what the fuck? But Yelka also had a copy of that book in her house.
on the coffee table when the cops
just
went in
there, like-
sitting like.
But Yelka had hated Alex so bad that she wanted to scare her. And when that wasn't enough, she went to a family friend, Mladen Nadic, and arranged for Alex to be killed. Most of the evidence against Yelka was circumstantial, with nothing physically tying her to the murder. But under the code in Canada, hiring a contract killer or arranging for someone to be murdered is automatically first-degree murder, even if you weren't physically there. So even though it was circumstantial, the evidence against Yelka was still overwhelming.
It was super overwhelming.
Yeah. The trial lasted a little over 2 weeks on the jury, and the jury went into deliberation, but came back really quickly with their decision. And the jury found Dave Segoviano, Mladen Nadic, Lawrence Delorme, and Yelka Pesic are all found guilty of first-degree murder and were all sentenced to life without parole for 25 years. There was a lot of emotion in the courtroom. Alex's mom, in anything you've watched, like,
Oh man.
this is horrible, but the other day I was watching, because I always watch stuff and, getting ready to do the case, I watch every single thing about it for weeks so I can just have it in my head. I do that anyway when it's not a case, but anyway. So Carlos was sleeping, and then the mom, it's like, because she's like, it's horrible. It's a horrible sound, but
It's a primal scream.
it is. It's horrible, and I've heard that so many times on true crime. But it's like that's the one thing: a mother's scream for their child when they've been murdered or when something's happened to them. And Carlos woke up like, what the fuck? But he was even like, that's like the saddest cry I've ever heard. So it was very
really
emotional.
sad.
Even all the detectives like recounting it, and 30 years later, everyone
they're
is
still
sad.
very emotional over this whole thing.
Yeah. So she said too, the mother, she's satisfied with the verdict, but she'll never again in her life be happy, which I can totally understand that. So Yelka has always maintained her innocence, and in 2008, after 15 years, she applied for early parole at our stupid fuck. Well, you guys know that we hate this. The faint hope clause is bullshit. It's something that happened
it's
after they
over now.
It is. It's over now. But in the cases when we talk about it,
It
it's
was
like
bullshit.
after 15 years,
You have no fucking chance of getting out, but faint hope. Let's try it.
let's
anyway.
try after 15 years for you to go in front of the fucking families, like of the person that you murdered,
Every
and
year.
say I should get out. Like, no, you shouldn't.
Yeah,
You
it's
have fucking
torture.
life. So anyway, she could never say anything nice about Alex when she was questioned, and the jury saw right through her every time and denied her for parole. And that day was actually the first time that Brandon had seen his dad and his grandmother, even though he didn't. I don't think it's his paternal grandmother. He has nothing to do with her. Obviously, she murdered his mother, but that was the first time he saw his dad in 15 years. And he testified again, obviously, about how horrible everything was,
And that must have been the hardest thing, because obviously when this happened, he was only 3 years old, and it was so sad.
yeah.
But imagine, like, you've lived with this legacy your whole life, and now you have to go testify against a family that is actually 50% of your DNA.
Yeah.
And now they've killed your mother, and now you have to get all of your, your courage together and go and testify so that this fucking horrible woman that happens to be your grandmother can't get out of jail for killing your mother. Like,
Yeah, and the fact that the dad never saw him again after that kind of speaks volumes, because think about it, they were in a custody battle.
yeah.
And usually if the dad didn't kill the mom, the kid is going to go live with the dad.
Yeah, and
He
her-
owed $80,000 in child support. Like, he just was like, oh, guess I'm done with this. Like,
yeah, and Alex's mom raised him for his
Yeah.
whole life.
yeah. And it's funny. I mean, it's not funny, but he's like a mechanic actually now.
Yeah,
and
he is a mechanic, and he never changed his last name,
No.
even though he did think about it, because but he said, no, that's my birthright, it's my name.
Yeah. So Mladen Nadic came to police while he was serving his sentence and claimed that it was not actually Yelka that hired him. Surprise, surprise, but it was Sam, Joe's father. He claimed he tried to get more money after the fact and tried to extort him. So Malad said that Sam told Nanadich that he would actually even get a bonus, air quotes, if he shot and killed Alex outside her mother's home so that the mother could see. Yeah, but these claims were never substantiated, and Sam has still never been charged in Alex's murder. And they actually still, to this day, own Sam and Sons, and Joe actually runs it because the parents are old as fuck now. And in 2018, old as fuck Yelka. Sorry for any of our listeners that are over the age of 70. But Yelka was released on parole, and she still lives with her husband in the same home that they have always lived in. And yeah, so in 1993, this is kind of nice, thanks criminal justice system. 1993 is when harassment and stalking actually became a crime. So a little too late to help Alex. But for victims, and we know because we've had mom has been stalked.
I mean, I just had to call a little while ago because of my stalker, and they didn't really do anything.
But it was kind of like a weird, like creepy, remember? Creepy.
Yeah.
But it never got too creepy, but it was kind of like romantically creepy, where it could have easily escalated to creepy.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't find the experience to be
one that you'd recommend.
Oh.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, obviously it didn't help save Alex because it was a year after she was murdered. But, you know, a lot of these people are, what is that when you, is it not a martyr? What is it when you die for a cause? And
it's a martyr.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. And then, you know, you die for a cause and then after there's change. So, yeah, don't stalk, don't murder your daughter-in-law, but how fucked up is that? Because
many like more daughter-in-law and mother-in-laws don't get along than do.
Yes. And
like
usually it's after you have a child because you're like, well, first of all, you live with the person that lady raised, so you're probably like, don't give me any parenting advice.
And mothers and sons often have like a weird bond where you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just feel like, I don't know. There's been a couple people I've dated where I was like, I probably just broke up with them because I didn't like their mom.
Remember the Papers lady?
That's what I mean. That was one where I was like, okay, weird.
He lived with his mom, and it was like still like weird.
Well, we were old, and like I think it was like she came to live with him because it was like some kind of a circumstance. Come on, exactly. But yeah, when you're some people, I mean, I'd live with you if Carlos would let you move in.
I wouldn't.
Let's do a I don't kill your son-in-law episode.
I
no,
won't.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Mom loves Carlos.
A lot.
A lot, yeah.
And I would never move in with you.
Well, I'm going to get you a mother-in-law suite, remember?
I still won't live in it.
You would. Come on.
We'll see.
We could also double it as a recording studio. No, just kidding.
Perfect.
Just kidding, Dad. We're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. But we are going to see you guys next time. Yeah. And we will be back. Actually, we're going to start to do more episodes. I know I've said that probably for the last 3 years.
I'm like,
we're going to start to do more often. Obviously, you guys know May was fucking hectic. And
it was very, very.
It was. There's a lot.
But the thing is that now I don't even know if I'll be alive because I'm about to go camping by myself every weekend.
In her rooftop tent.
In the middle of nowhere, off the grid.
Don't tell them where, because
I'm not telling you guys where. But
I really still feel like
if I'm not, then my son's agreed to step in, and it will be called Murder with My Brother.
Nah, we'll just do Kears. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm taking Kears camping this weekend.
Oh yeah,
so.
yeah. No, well, we won't. I'll obviously wait for you to record, but
okay.
But yeah, so we will see you guys. We sing a little more of us. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I don't know, but. Anyway,
thanks for tuning in,
guys.
Thanks
for tuning in. That was episode 46 of Murder with My Mother, the true crime podcast where I talk murder with my mother. Bye guys. Thank you. Thank you.